Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Natalie Batta. She is a senior medical science liaison at Alimera, and we talk about bedside manner and the importance of bedside manner as it relates to relationship building and how it relates to artificial intelligence. And really cool conversation. I think that you guys are going to like this. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and check us out the first Tuesday of every month for MSL Talk Live, which is a live panel discussion on the LinkedIn platform, and that's usually at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's with my co-host, Julie Chen. So thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for all of your support of this podcast. Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. All right. Hey, Natalie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
So exciting.
It is. We have a great topic.
So guys, let me catch you up to speed as to how this whole thing went down. You know how I like to kind of set these things up. So I've known Natalie for a while, see her at conferences, run into her in Miami at the MSL Society meeting, started a conversation, started talking about the podcast. She came up with this amazing idea. And here we are. So, guys, you know, might not think it's yes, it's that simple. It's like when someone has a really good idea and they're super smart, and I know it's going to be a great conversation, it's just a yes for me. So, Natalie, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
Perfect. So my name is Natalie Batta. I am a medical doctor, and I have an MBA as my training path, and I work for Alimera Sciences. I'm 2 months short of 4 years there, so it's been pretty awesome. And in my role, I've gotten to train other MSLs and go out on field rides with them. And that's sort of how this came about a little bit, is just seeing the different manners people have when interacting with physicians. And then
very timely conversation too, I will say, not to interrupt. I think this is a perfect time to have this chat.
I think so too, especially we're at the meeting together and it was all about data and new innovations in data and everything coming out on the market. And it took me back, and that's how we started the conversation. Was I attended a similar conference prior to COVID back in 2019, and it was put on by Pepperdine, which is a local university here, their school of business. And it was the title was Healthcare Leadership in the AI Revolution, Opportunity in a Smart Machine Age. And so I went there thinking I'm going to learn all this new technology. I'm going to be at the top of my field, just gain everything. And it was completely different than what I had expected. They actually brought the Surgeon General, our current Surgeon General, between his times in office and to discuss bedside manner. And that the new technology is we have to take it back to bedside manner and how we interact with people. And so it was different than what I expected, but I learned a lot as well.
All right, we're going to unpack that. But before we do that, I just want to point something out. So the thing that's interesting to me is that, so Natalie's an MD. So not that that makes that much of a difference. You know, there's obviously PharmDs, MDs, PhDs, but when I think bedside manner, I think physician, I think doctor. So the fact that you're an MD and you came up with this, and you were inspired by this, obviously from this talk, to me, just it all fits. So I want to talk about this bedside manner as it relates to. So are we talking about this as in this day and age? There's all this technology focus on artificial intelligence and all this machine learning that's going on, yet how important it is to get back to the basics of human interaction and bedside manner. Is that at the crux of this?
Yes. So it's building that relationship as MSLs. That's our job description, is building that relationship between our companies and these physicians. And bedside manner is all about building that relationship between you and your patients so that they have trust in you and your decisions that you make together.
So let's talk about that for a second, because it's funny, you go to these conferences and it seems like everybody just wants to consume information on digital, artificial intelligence, omni-channel. And here we are, we're taking this little bit of a sidestep and a step back. So what advice do you have for MSLs, and what do they need to focus on first? And how do you see this as we're navigating and trying to, because obviously you have to do both. You have to be aware of the other side of it. So how do people navigate those waters?
So this isn't, we're against technology and you shouldn't use any of that stuff. By no means is that what I'm going at. I use them all the time. They're a tool. They're very helpful in helping build those relationships that you will have. It's part of doing your background history on these physicians to get to know what they like, what they don't like, and little conversation starters that you can pick up from those channels. I have them on Twitter. I look them up on LinkedIn. I do a PubMed search, just everything I have at my disposal to know what their interests are in and how to lead a conversation. But at the same time, the key is having that conversation. So it's all about your first presentation with that physician, grabbing their interest, and then keeping it and how you could add value to them based on all the AI technology that you've used to research about them. Mm-hmm. So that's a little thing, but it all depends on your timing, how much time you have with physicians also.
It's so funny because we're talking about this parallel universe now where it makes sense to combine both worlds. So how do you, as you said, you're going to do your research. How do you know about a physician and what it is that you need to talk about, make the connection? How do you learn about that person? Well, you learn through social listening, social media monitoring, artificial intelligence, any kind of data sources that you're getting, things that are coming to you from the digital world, right? But now you're leveraging that for your bedside manner.
100%. And so you're taking that with you, and let's say it's a doctor who's interested in technology. And so most of the talks that they give on the podium are about the different instruments that they use. So as you're getting to talk to them, you'll ask them about what they've discovered, what they learned, bring that. And then it depends what meeting you're on, obviously, Tom. But if it's further along, not necessarily your initial meeting, but further along, you could sort of incorporate them, what you learned, and then how their technology that they're interested in could help them diagnose patients that you're interested in. And so it's a way of bringing in topics that are related to your field, whatever you're promoting, essentially, even though as MSLs we're not promoting, but whatever we believe in as our drug, whatever we're sharing with them, but tying it into their interests.
Love it. Yeah.
And so then it doesn't feel like you're data dumping, which is a thing that we try to avoid doing. But that's a learned trait.
No, but that's, again, getting back to the approach and how to use this bedside manner concept properly. There's a lot of different ways that MSLs could go in and approach their call or their visit, and not to say anything negative about anyone, but there are a lot of people that go in and they blow right through the stop sign. They're not doing the research ahead of time. They don't know anything about the KOL. They're just going in, they're like, okay, I'm here to talk about this study. I'm here to talk about this content, this data, whatever it is.
And that's the first stop that the physician will see that coming and put a block and tell you, sorry, I'm busy. I have to go run, do this. So they know what's coming. They know it's your pitch that you want to share everything. And they're just like, no, not in for it. Let me go.
I love it. And that's why this is so important. That's why when we started talking about this, having this conversation, that's why I think this topic is so relevant, because I talk to MSLs all the time, coach MSLs all the time. And this is something that it just becomes habitual.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It's learnable and trainable. So that's the key part of when you're going on field rides with your colleagues, is picking up on different techniques that they each have along the way that they've developed, and then incorporating that into your own. Not saying be them, mesh it with your own personal style, but see how they engage the physicians. And we each do it in a different way because we have different backgrounds, because we're coming from multiple disciplines. And you see that even when we're creating slide decks for our physicians to present to them. You know, it's great to have the different people on the team, the PhDs, which love the science and are really deep into the molecular levels, the PharmDs who love the mechanism of action, and then you have the MDs who are sort of going, so what to all of this? How's this going to affect the patient? And incorporating those, it's almost 3 trains of thought into one.
Right.
And that's how you get the most effective presentation that we could all take out into the field.
Well, you know, you mentioned something else that I think is really important, and it's just literally one word, and that is listen. Yeah. And you and I talked about how important it is to just try to put your agenda aside, at least in the very beginning, and just listen. Ask the right questions, get to know the physicians a little bit, and just find out what their needs are and just listen. How important in the bedside manner equation is listening?
It's top. And I'm not saying just completely listen, don't talk at all. There's a happy medium between the two, because obviously you have to ask questions to get to know them, and so you could pull out what it is. But in medicine, a lot of times when you're treating with patients, you won't get your final diagnosis unless you listen to little hints that they left about their lives or something that they did. And then you're like, oh, that's how it all clicks in. And it's very similar with when talking with our physicians. Many times you'll be in their offices and you're developing your relationship. You're just talking. And sometimes if it's that first meeting, you're not even going to bring up your drug other than you work for your company, you know, but you're getting to know them. You're getting to know what their interests are. And sometimes in that, they'll tell you, you know, I really have a hard time. I really believe in this class of medication, but because of the insurances, I'm not able to use them first line, even though I think I should be. Or, you know, we have a backup in our research. Everybody's just huge turnover. So we're having a hard time recruiting patients for studies. So it's little things that they'll volunteer the information, but those are the insights that you really want. And you haven't told them anything yet about your drug.
Right.
You know, so it's little things of seeing and then being able to connect those dots. And then sometimes you might know a research coordinator who's looking for a job, and then adding value in that. How about I connect you with this person, or this fellow's just getting out of residency. I know you're seeing a lot more patients and you're short staffed. Interview them, see if you like them. You never know. And it's little tidbits. So listening to what they have to say helps bring value to them, and then you learn more insights without actually talking the whole time.
It's just such great advice. You cannot go wrong. And if you adopt that as a habit, as a technique that you lead with, you're just going to get so much more out of it, because you can't undo it. Like once you go into a KOL and you don't take that approach and you steamroll it and you start with, you know, you lead with the data, it's hard to undo that. So I just think it's such a best practice that works so well. So Natalie, you also mentioned, we had a whole conversation about emotional intelligence, which we've spoken a lot about on this podcast. And there's always room for more conversations and more opinions as it relates to, you know, what's called EQ. So how do you see the emotional intelligence piece as it relates to this bedside manner concept?
So it goes back to also that listening for what your physician wants, picking up cues that they're giving off. We talked about data dumping. So many times I've seen people go in and just want to give all their data or start on a topic and not know when the physician has had enough of that topic. And you're sort of observing this and you see the physician's eyes sort of glaze right over. And then they just block. You know that they're not listening to anything else this person is saying, no matter how interesting it is. It's just they put up that physical block. So many times, if I see them starting to roll their eyes back, I'll switch the topic. And so to something completely not related that I know engages them, bring them back, and then later on, I'll, in a different manner, bring up the same topic that I was bringing up before, but they wouldn't realize they will eventually realize it's the same topic, but not initially, and incorporate that back in when they're more receptive to hearing that interesting data. And so the EQ is just knowing what your limit is, and sometimes even recognizing the time limits these physicians have. So if you're meeting them over a lunch, they're seeing patients in between and running around. Their lunch isn't necessarily the full hour. Sometimes it's just that 10, 15 minutes. They want to tell you hello. Okay, what do you have that's new? Tell me that. But that's usually after you've built the relationship with them that you can have those quick conversations. So it's recognizing, okay, this patient, he needs to go. Something I like to tell my physicians, your patients will always come first. And that is something that just puts them at ease. Like, I'm not here to hinder your day-to-day. I just want to let you know this information. I could do it between patients. So go and see a patient, come back, I'll tell you a little bit more, and back and forth. One time I spent almost half a day at a physician's office. And that was literally what it was. And he was like, please don't leave, like stay. I want to continue this conversation. And he would just run around back and forth between his patients and then come back, continue it. And so it was just one of those visits. And so it's just realizing what time they have. Don't bring up a new article that you want to get their opinion on if you see that they're ready to leave the door. Save that for next time. So that's part of the emotional intelligence that we look for, is seeing how receptive the other person is to the information you want to share, knowing your limit, not data dumping, and just bringing value in some way.
And it's also the read the room kind of thing. You have to read the room, and you have to be good at picking up those cues and those subtleties. And you're obviously very good at this. I mean, I've had plenty of conversations with you. We're talking about it now. So you're a pro.
Well, I can improve. We can always improve,
and we all can, no doubt. Yeah. And little shameless plug, if you want to get better emotional intelligence, go back and listen to, I don't know what episode numbers they are, but Doug Yao came on and he talked about emotional intelligence. Jessica Freund came on, she talked about emotional intelligence. So there's a bunch of episodes that we have on here on this podcast that you can check out. But getting back to you, Natalie, do you think that this comes more naturally for you because you're an MD and you've been on the other side?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So it depends where your training was. I actually went to medical school in Mexico. Okay. So you have a ton of time to get to know your patients there. That's what they focus on. I've rotated in the States. So I've seen how they have shorter time blocks, 15 minutes sometimes, if it's family medicine, to see a patient. You don't have more. So they cut the visit short. Just tell me what your primary concern is. I don't need to know anything else. And that's what we have in our healthcare system here. Versus there, it was very much focused. I could go in and spend hours with my patients when I was overnight shifts at the hospital, just getting to know them. So that's different. And it comes down to personality types. Some like to get to know others more than others. I think MSLs in general, we like to communicate. We get to know other people. We are more of the talkers. And that's why we go into this field of building relationships, is because we enjoy this. I do think it is a learned trait. And I've seen it within my colleagues, how they've changed some of their approaches also to start to incorporate this. And then especially newer MSLs, learning to not just go in there and be like, here's my data, and then physicians will be like, yeah, this is why I don't talk to you, is I don't care to hear it. Like, get to know me first.
Yeah.
Tell me hello before you tell me about your data. And so that's one of the biggest features. And I think one of our VP of Medical Affairs, actually, we're talking about this at conferences. And I was like, it's great now at conferences, since I've been in this field a while, the doctors I don't have to go looking for the doctors and feeling that awkward moment when you're inserting yourself into a conversation, trying to get started. It's now they'll come and talk with me. So that's a great feeling to have. And he was like, yeah, it's because you don't give them right away, start talking about the data. You talk to them and you get to know them. And so I'll catch up with a lot of them beforehand, and then they'll know that I'll always introduce them to other physicians or somebody that they might want to meet. And so I try to add value in that way. And then I get to know, and they introduce me to other physicians also. So
yeah,
it's always like a win-win.
It's just great advice. It reminds me, and I'll tell you a quick story. So I started in the field when earlier in my career. So I was in the field for 10 years. I was on the commercial side. I'll never forget, I was really young in my career. And my manager was working with me this one day, and I was all pumped up, and I was going to take her out to my best KOLs. And, so we go out, take her to this office, and we go in, and I'm like, boom, 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 right? And I'm all excited, and we get back out in the car, and, I'm all fired up because I think I just nailed it. And she goes, well, how do you think you did? So I was like, crushed it. How do you think I did? She's like, well, so I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? She goes, Tom, you didn't ask one question. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no. She goes, how did you know what to present when you didn't ask him one question? You just went right into it. She's like, you did a great job. You obviously developed a good relationship with that physician. Sounds like you know him well. I get that. She's like, but let's replay that. And, she really made me talk through, how would you do that again? How would you do that next time? Knowing the feedback that I just gave you. And it really changed. I, first of all, felt like an idiot. But I had a great relationship with my manager, so we laughed about it. But the thing is, sometimes you do have to take a step back and really recognize the best approach, the best technique. You talk about emotional intelligence and listening, and back then we didn't call it emotional intelligence. We just didn't. At least if they did, that wasn't something I was aware of. What other? And you obviously are really well versed in all this stuff. What else could we discuss today? What else may we have missed? What other things fall into the bedside manner, relationship building thing that we should touch on?
I think it would, if anything, it would be, it's building that friendship with your physician.
Yeah.
Would you want to talk to yourself if you weren't friends with yourself? It's being that person that they want to reach out to, just to even, yes, there's a fine line between professional and personal, but it's being able to have that conversation and being able to be like, they could reach you at any time, and you being that source for them. So I know a lot of my physicians will just text me, hey, is this contraindicated in this patient? Or what do you think about this? It's just getting that information and them being open and knowing that you're receptive to answering what they have, and never being like, I'm the premier source for this knowledge base on this drug, and you cannot teach me anything. It's always being, look, I could learn more. You're actually having the experience dealing with your patients. What should I know? Not being afraid to say you don't know also is part of bedside manner.
Yeah.
Because you work through it together. And so that friendship, the togetherness to get over obstacles is part of the bedside manner as well.
Yeah. I love that, because when you think about it, it's almost like when you Do you ever hear that expression, like when you go to hire someone, you want to hire somebody that you can see yourself having a beer with, having a drink with, being at happy hour with? You want to be around people that you like and can call a friend or have a friendly conversation. You're not going to make everybody your friend.
You're not going to make, yeah.
It's just not the way it works. But I love what you're saying, because if you take that barrier out and take that block out of your mind of thinking, well, I could never be on a friendly basis with this person because they're a KOL, well, then you're not giving yourself the advantage of putting yourself at the right level, because it could happen organically. And that's how it happens. It happens naturally, just through getting to know that person, solving problems for that person, bringing value to that person, and getting really good at this bedside manner thing.
Yeah. And it will improve your relationships with these physicians drastically, so that if you get told, hey, can you reach out to this physician, or can you schedule a meeting with them, they're not going to hesitate and be like, no, this is a waste of my time. I'm just going to sit there and be lectured to. They're going to be like, yeah, sure, of course, no problem. Or yes, please share my number with so-and-so if they're anything like you. Like, it helps bridge those networks that you do have, and being able to show people back in your company, look, I do have this relationship with this person. Whenever you need to talk to them, that bridge is now open.
Yep.
So
now we covered, obviously, I think we've done a good job covering the bedside manner thing, but we still probably need to finish by talking about the digital thing, because it's very important. Digital, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and where medical affairs is going. So where do you see things? Where do you see things going as it relates to the digital stuff?
I think the digital stuff will make our jobs easier in learning what the interests are of our physicians, seeing where the field as a whole is going, and looking at those different trends that we can pick up on, and seeing why their practice habits are maybe changing as they are based on new therapies coming on, what insurances are doing, the payers, that always comes to a head, and using that information to even help ease your physician relationships, like concerns sometimes, and having that conversation of, okay, let me know where the field is going, how we could help you get to that next level for the physician. And then, just getting to know them better, learning how to have the conversations. You're going to have two general types, and I'm generalizing here. So two main types of physicians, and it comes down to their basic science interests when they're in school. Do they love chemistry, or do they love the physics and engineering? And usually that determines what therapeutic area they end up in, and the different types of conversations you can have with these physicians. If they're the physicist, engineering, they want to know how stuff works. And so you'll go in and talk to them about the mechanics of the drug, what they're seeing on imaging, how to use it. And that's the conversation they want to have. And pretty much benefit and risk to their patient. That's the conversation you're having with that doctor. If it's somebody who's more interested in the chemistry and the cellular biology, you're going deeper. You're diving deeper into the data, and then you can use that AI and everything that you're getting from there, like to show the better imaging, to what cellular level, bring up different articles that you would have found on there to their attention.
Yeah.
So it's using both, seeing what you learned from AI and then incorporating that to that patient.
Awesome stuff. You are amazing. I thought that this was a great conversation. It flew by too. I can't believe that was like the fastest 30 minutes of my life. So thank you, Natalie, for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, thanks everybody. That's our show for today. Thank you guys for sharing this podcast and for all of your support. I really appreciate you all. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.